Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring Ayurveda and its fascinating perspective on the mind.
All right.
So, most people when they think of Ayurveda, they think of, herbs and massages and things like that. But there's so much more to it,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to understanding mental health and well-being.
Yeah, for sure.
So to guide our deep dive today, we're going to be looking at a scholarly article titled Manas, Mind, and Manovikara, Mental Disorder in Ayurveda, a review.
Okay.
And it was published in the International Journal of Ayurveda and Pharma Research. So pretty heavy stuff, but we're going to try to break it down and make it understandable and also really see how these ancient ideas can be relevant to our lives today.
Right.
Because everybody's dealing with stress and anxiety and all these mental health challenges.
Absolutely.
And Ayurveda, this ancient system of medicine that originated in India, thousands of years ago, might have some insights for us.
Yeah. I think one of the really cool things about Ayurveda is that it really emphasizes this mind-body-spirit connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about addressing physical symptoms or even just mental symptoms, but it's about seeing the whole person
Right.
and understanding how all these different aspects of our being are interconnected.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's start with the basics.
Mm.
How does Ayurveda actually define the mind?
Well, they have a specific term for it. They call it manas.
Manas.
And it's not exactly the same as how we might think about the mind, in Western psychology or medicine.
Right.
Ayurveda sees manas as developing actually in the 5th month of pregnancy.
Oh, wow.
And it's this bridge between our physical body and our soul or our spirit.
Okay, so it's like this connecting link
Exactly.
between the physical and the non-physical.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because they believe that manas resides in the heart.
Wait, the mind is in the heart.
Yeah, I know it sounds a little strange, right?
Yeah.
But Ayurveda sees the heart as the seat of consciousness and emotion, not just this pump that circulates blood, but it's really where our deepest sense of self resides.
Okay, so it's like our core,
Exactly.
our beingness.
And that's where manas kind of governs our perceptions and our actions.
So it's influencing everything we experience and everything we do.
Exactly. And they have this interesting concept of the mind being a combined psychomotor entity.
Could break that down for me.
So basically, it means that the mind is responsible for both our sensory experiences, like what we see and hear and taste and smell and touch, and also our physical actions.
Right.
So it's like this central control panel.
Interesting. Okay, so it's like receiving input from the senses and then sending out instructions to the body.
Right.
Okay, that's starting to paint a picture for me.
Yeah.
But how can something as complex as the mind, be located in a physical organ like the heart?
Well, that's where the concept of the 3 gunas comes in.
The Gunas.
Yeah, these are like qualities or energies that make up everything in the universe, including our minds. So the 3 gunas are Satwavajaya and Tama.
Satwavajaya and Tama.
You can kind of think of them like different modes of being.
Yeah.
So Satwa is like the pure, wise, balanced energy.
Wow.
Raja is more about activity, passion, restlessness.
Mm-hmm.
And Tama is inertia, ignorance, heaviness, darkness.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this might relate to mental health.
Exactly, because Ayurveda believes that an imbalance in these gunas,
Right.
especially too much Raja and Tama, is what leads to mental distress.
Interesting.
So they call these like manasic doshas, which you can think of as mental imbalances.
Gotcha. So it's like saying if we have too much Raja, we might be really anxious and agitated. And if we have too much Tama, we might be depressed or lethargic.
Exactly. And these imbalances manifest in the heart, since that's where the mind is residing according to Ayurveda.
So it's all connected.
It all comes back to the heart.
Okay, this is fascinating. So now I'm curious to know, what does Ayurveda consider a mental disorder? Like, what's their definition?
Well, they use the term Manovikara,
Manovikara.
which basically means any kind of mental imbalance or disturbance.
Okay.
And Ayurveda believes that any disease, including mental illness, stems from 3 main imbalances.
3 main imbalances.
Okay.
The first one is all about how we use our senses.
Okay.
They have a term for it, Aset Mandriyartha Samyoga, but basically it's like sensory overload.
Sensory overload.
Think about it. How much time do we spend staring at screens, bombarded by information and stimulation?
It's true. We're constantly plugged in.
And Ayurveda says that this can really take a toll on our mental health.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that would contribute to anxiety and stress.
Exactly. And then the second imbalance is Prashnaparada, which is like going against our inner wisdom.
Prajnaparada, going against our inner wisdom.
It's like when we know what's good for us, but we do the opposite anyway.
Right, like staying up late even though we know we need sleep.
Exactly. Or eating junk food, even though we know it's not good for our bodies or our minds.
Yeah, we've all been there.
And the third imbalance is parinama, which refers to the influence of time. Time? Yeah, like the aging process, past experiences, even our genetic predispositions.
Okay, so it's acknowledging that our mental health is not just a product of our current circumstances, but also everything that's come before.
Exactly. And here's the crucial point. Ayurveda sees mental disorders not as separate from physical health,
Right.
but as part of a holistic imbalance in the individual.
So it's all interconnected.
It's all one big system.
Wow. That's a really different perspective than what we're used to in the West.
It is, and I think it's a really valuable perspective because it helps us to see that treating mental health is not just about, taking a pill or going to therapy, but it's about addressing the whole person.
Right. Making lifestyle changes, looking at our diet, our sleep, our relationships, all these things.
Exactly. It's about creating balance in all areas of our lives.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So now I'm curious, what does Ayurveda say actually causes these mental imbalances? Like what's going on in our minds and bodies when we're struggling with anxiety or depression or other mental health challenges? Well, they point to several factors. One is suppressing natural urges.
Suppressing natural urges.
Yeah, like bottling up our emotions or ignoring our body's signals.
Right. So like not allowing ourselves to cry when we're sad or pushing through when we're exhausted.
Exactly. And Ayurveda says that this can create a lot of tension and imbalance in the mind and body.
Yeah. I can see how that would lead to problems.
And then, of course, there's the dominance of those Raja and Tama Gunas that we talked about earlier.
Right. Too much activity and restlessness or too much heaviness and negativity.
Exactly. It's like those energies start to take over and cloud our minds.
Okay, is there anything else?
The article also mentions impaired intellect, patience, and memory as contributing factors.
So if our minds aren't functioning optimally, it's harder to make good decisions, regulate our emotions, and cope with challenges.
Right. And then there's also the concept of karma, which is the idea that actions from past lives can influence our current state.
Karma, okay, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, but whether you believe in past lives or not, the underlying message is that our past experiences, choices, and even inherited tendencies can play a role in our mental health.
Okay, so it's like saying that we're not starting from scratch.
We're carrying baggage.
We're carrying baggage from our past that can impact our mental well-being.
Right.
Okay, I'm starting to get the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
But how does Ayurveda explain how these factors actually cause mental disorders? Like, what's the mechanism?
They believe these factors disrupt something called the Manovikara.
The Manovikara.
I know it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But basically, it means channels or pathways in the mind.
Okay.
And they believe that when these channels are blocked or disrupted by negative thoughts, suppressed emotions, or imbalanced gunas, it can lead to all sorts of mental and emotional problems.
Interesting. So it's like our mental energy needs to flow freely for us to be healthy.
Exactly.
And when we have these negative thoughts or these suppressed emotions, it's like creating a dam in those channels.
That's a great analogy.
It blocks the flow.
And the article gets even more specific. It provides a whole list of manobhavas, which are mental states or emotions.
Okay, a whole list of mental states.
Yeah, and some of them are positive, like harsha, which is euphoria or joy. But then there are the negative ones, like krodha, which is anger, and paya, which is fear.
Makes sense.
And Ayurveda says that imbalances in these manobhavas contribute to the development of manovikara, or mental disorders.
It's fascinating how they break it all down. So we've talked about what causes these imbalances, but now I'm curious, how does Ayurveda actually address them? Like, what are their treatment approaches?
This is where it gets really interesting, because Ayurveda has this multi-pronged approach to mental health that they call Trivida Chikitsa, which means threefold treatment.
Threefold treatment. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So the first part is Daivavyapashraya Chikitsa, which translates to spiritual therapy.
Spiritual therapy. So is this all about, praying and going to temples and stuff?
Well, it can include those things, but it's broader than that. It's really about cultivating a connection to something bigger than yourself.
Okay.
Whether that's through nature or meditation or mantra or even acts of service and gratitude.
So it's about fostering a sense of peace and purpose.
Exactly. And it's interesting because more and more scientific research is backing up the mental health benefits of these practices,
Right.
like meditation and mindfulness, which have been a part of Ayurveda for centuries.
It's like modern science is catching up to ancient wisdom.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the second part of this threefold treatment approach?
The second part is called Yuktivyapashraya Chikitsa, which is rational therapy.
Rational therapy.
This is where Ayurveda gets a bit more practical,
Okay.
focusing on things like dietary changes, herbal medicines, and purification therapies.
Okay, so this is where we get into like the more traditional Ayurvedic treatments.
Exactly.
Tell me more about these therapies.
Well, some of the interesting herbs they mention include ashwagandha brahmi and jadamansi, all of which have been studied for their potential to reduce stress and improve mental clarity.
Okay, I've definitely heard of ashwagandha.
Okay.
What about these purification techniques? What are those all about?
So they have techniques like vamana, which is emetic therapy, and virachana, which is purgation.
Emetic therapy and purgation. Those sound pretty intense.
They can be, but the idea is to eliminate toxins from the body that could be contributing to mental imbalances.
So it's like a deep cleanse for the mind and body.
Exactly. It's about creating a fresh start and restoring balance.
Okay, and what's the third part of this threefold treatment approach?
The third part is Satwavajaya Chikitsa, which translates to psychobehavioral therapy.
Psychobehavioral therapy. Okay, that sounds more in line with modern psychology.
Yeah, this part focuses on strengthening the mind through practices like mindfulness, self-awareness, and ethical living, which they call sadvrita.
Sadhrita.
Yeah, it's about developing mental discipline and making choices that support mental well-being.
So things like cultivating positive thoughts, managing our reactions to stress, and living in alignment with our values.
Precisely. And you know what's really interesting is that these techniques actually resemble some modern therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT.
Wow, so there's a lot of overlap between ancient wisdom and modern psychology.
There is. It's really fascinating.
This is all making so much sense. So
Okay.
Ayurveda really offers this comprehensive system for understanding and addressing mental health.
It does.
It's amazing how it incorporates elements of spirituality, physical health, and psychology all in one.
It's truly a holistic system that recognizes the interconnectedness of all aspects of our being.
So before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious, does Ayurveda have anything to say about cultivating positive mental states? Like beyond just treating illness, is there a focus on promoting mental well-being?
Absolutely. In fact, Ayurveda emphasizes that true well-being goes beyond simply managing symptoms. It's about cultivating those positive qualities of mind that we talked about earlier, like Satwa, wisdom, clarity, and balance.
So it's not just about the absence of mental distress, but the presence of mental strength and resilience.
Exactly.
Okay, I love that. So what are some of the signs of mental health according to Ayurveda?
The article lists some interesting ones. Good memory, being self-aware, doing things with enthusiasm, following a good value system, and persevering even when things get tough.
Those are great qualities to strive for. It sounds like Ayurveda's definition of mental well-being is about having a strong, resilient mind that can navigate life's challenges with grace and wisdom.
Exactly. It's not just the absence of mental distress, but the presence of mental strength, clarity, and resilience.
This has been an incredible journey so far.
Yeah.
We've learned so much about Ayurveda's unique perspective on the mind and mental health. But before we wrap up part one of this deep dive, we have one more important piece to explore,
Right.
and that is, how does Ayurveda view the mind in relation to the soul and the concept of enlightenment?
Ooh, that's getting into some deep philosophical territory.
I know, right? I can't wait to dive in. But we'll have to save that for part two of our deep dive. So stay tuned.
All right. Welcome back to our deep dive into Ayurveda's view of the mind.
I'm so glad we're continuing this conversation.
Me too. There's so much to unpack.
There is. And in part one, we were just starting to explore how Ayurveda sees the mind as this incredibly powerful force connected to our overall well-being.
Right. It's not just about, the absence of mental illness, but it's
Right.
about cultivating mental strength and clarity and resilience.
Absolutely. And I think that brings us to a really interesting aspect of Ayurveda, which is its view of the mind in relation to the soul
Yes.
and the concept of enlightenment.
Hmm.
So let's dive into that a little bit.
Okay.
What does Ayurveda have to say about the soul?
Well, in Ayurveda, the soul is considered the ultimate source of consciousness. It's like the eternal, unchanging essence of who we are beyond our physical bodies and even beyond our minds.
So it's like the soul is the pure awareness
Yes,
that experiences everything but isn't really affected by those experiences.
you got it. And the mind, according to Ayurveda, acts as a kind of instrument for the soul.
Okay.
It allows the soul to interact with the world through our senses, our thoughts, our emotions.
That's a really fascinating way to think about it. So where does enlightenment fit into all of this?
Well, in Ayurveda, enlightenment or moksha is the ultimate goal.
Moksha.
Yes, it's about realizing the true nature of the soul, which is pure bliss and freedom.
Wow.
And the path to enlightenment involves purifying the mind
Hmm.
and freeing it from the grip of the ego or the sense of separation from the divine.
So it's about transcending the limitations of the mind
Yes,
and connecting with that deeper sense of self, that soul essence.
exactly. And Ayurveda believes that this is possible through practices like meditation, yoga, ethical living, and cultivating those positive qualities of mind that we talked about earlier.
So it sounds like a lifelong journey
It
of
is.
self-discovery and spiritual growth.
It is. And it's a journey that Ayurveda offers a roadmap for. By understanding the nature of the mind, its tendencies, and its potential, we can begin to work with it rather than against it.
That's so powerful. It's like saying that we have the power to shape our own minds,
Yes.
and in doing so, shape our own destinies.
Absolutely. And this brings us back to the importance of those three gunas.
Right, Satwa, Raja, and Tama.
Exactly. Remember, Satwa represents purity, wisdom, and balance.
Mm-hmm.
Raja is all about activity, passion, and restlessness.
Right.
And Tama is inertia, ignorance, darkness.
And too much Raja and Tama can lead to those mental imbalances,
Exactly.
those manasic doshas.
So the path to enlightenment from an Ayurvedic perspective involves cultivating more sattva
Okay.
and reducing the influence of Raja and Tama.
So it's about creating a mind that is calm, clear, and connected to its true nature.
Yes.
So practices like meditation and yoga aren't just about relaxation and stress relief.
Right.
They're actually tools for spiritual transformation.
That's how Ayurveda sees it. They're practices that help us to purify the mind and connect with that deeper sense of self, that soul essence.
Wow, that puts a whole new spin on my yoga practice. So how do we actually go about cultivating more sattva in our lives?
Well, Ayurveda offers a whole range of practices and lifestyle recommendations. Things like diet, sleep, and specific mind-body practices.
Diet. Knew it.
Of course, Ayurveda emphasizes eating fresh, whole foods that are easy to digest and nourishing for both the mind and body. Avoiding processed foods, excess sugar, caffeine, and alcohol can also help to calm the mind and reduce the influence of Raja and Tama.
Okay, that makes sense.
What else?
Getting enough sleep is crucial. Ayurveda recommends establishing a regular sleep-wake cycle and creating a calming bedtime routine to promote restful sleep.
Right.
When we're sleep-deprived, our minds tend to be more agitated and prone to negativity.
So true. I'm definitely more likely to spiral into anxiety when I haven't had enough sleep. What about those mind-body practices you mentioned?
Practices like meditation, yoga, and pranayama, which is a yogic breathing technique, are incredibly valuable.
Okay.
These practices help to calm the nervous system, still the mind, and connect us with our inner peace. I'm starting to see how all of these pieces fit together. It's not just about isolated practices.
Right.
It's about creating a holistic lifestyle that supports mental and spiritual well-being.
Precisely. And that includes cultivating positive relationships, engaging in meaningful work, and living in accordance with our values.
Right.
All of these things contribute to a sense of purpose and fulfillment, which nourish the soul.
This is all so inspiring.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, it can also feel a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin to implement all of these teachings in our modern lives?
That's a great question. And I think the key is to start small and focus on one or two practices that resonate with you. Maybe it's establishing a regular meditation practice or incorporating more fresh fruits and vegetables into your diet.
Or maybe it's simply becoming more aware of our thoughts and emotions.
Yes.
And how they're impacting our well-being.
Exactly. The important thing is to be patient with yourself and to remember that this is a journey, not a destination.
This deep dive has been such an eye-opener. We've learned so much about Ayurveda's perspective on the mind, the soul, and the path to enlightenment. But before we get too carried away with our spiritual aspirations, we need to address the practical side of things.
Right. We've talked about the causes of mental disorders and the general principles of Ayurvedic treatment.
Right.
But in part 3 of our deep dive, we'll explore some specific Ayurvedic remedies and techniques that can be used to address common mental health challenges.
Stay tuned for part 3. Welcome back to our final part of this deep dive into Ayurveda and mental health.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It really has. We've covered so much ground.
Yeah.
From Ayurveda's unique perspective on the mind and the soul and all those different treatment approaches.
Yeah, and how it's not just about treating illness, but really about cultivating balance and well-being.
Absolutely. So now I'm really curious to get into the practical stuff.
Okay.
We keep talking about this holistic approach to treating mental disorders.
Right.
But what does that actually look like? What specific remedies and techniques are you using? I mean, tell me about those herbs and massages we keep mentioning.
Well, one of the cornerstones of Ayurvedic treatment is diet.
Ah, yes. Food as medicine.
Exactly.
That's a concept that's really gaining traction these days, but it's been central to Ayurveda for centuries.
Exactly. Ayurveda sees this strong connection between what we eat and how we feel both physically and mentally.
Right.
So the emphasis is on choosing foods that are nourishing and easy to digest and balancing for the individual's unique constitution or dosha.
Right, because what works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. Ayurveda is all about personalized medicine.
So, for example, someone who tends towards anxiety or insomnia,
Right.
what kind of foods would be recommended for them?
So they might benefit from calming foods,
Okay.
like warm milk with nutmeg-cooked apples or sweet potatoes.
Okay, those sound pretty soothing.
Yeah,
And what about someone who's feeling more sluggish or depressed?
right. So they might need more warming and stimulating foods like ginger garlic or black pepper.
Okay, so it's really about tailoring the diet to the individual's needs.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And Ayurveda also emphasizes mindful eating.
Mindful eating.
Paying attention to our food, chewing thoroughly, and eating in a calm and relaxed environment.
Right.
Because when we rush through our meals or we eat while we're stressed, our digestion suffers, and that can have a ripple effect on our mental state.
That makes a lot of sense.
I know.
I definitely feel better when I take the time to really savor my food.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about diet.
Yeah.
What about those herbs we keep hearing about? Tell me everything.
All right. Well, Ayurveda has a rich tradition of using medicinal plants
Yeah.
to address a wide range of health concerns, including mental health.
Okay. And some of these herbs you might already be familiar with, like ashwagandha,
Yeah.
which is becoming increasingly popular for its stress-reducing and mood-boosting properties.
Absolutely. What else is in the Ayurvedic pharmacy?
Yeah. What else?
Well, another popular herb is Brahmi, also known as Gotu kola.
Okay.
And it's been traditionally used to improve memory, reduce anxiety, and promote mental clarity.
I think I've seen Brahmi supplements at the health food store.
You probably have.
Is there any science behind these claims?
There is. Some studies have shown that Brahmi can have a positive effect on cognitive function.
Okay. That's good to know.
Another herb that's often recommended for stress and anxiety is jatamansi,
Dadamansi.
also known as spikenard.
Okay.
And it has this calming and grounding effect on the nervous system.
So all of these herbs are really targeting that stress response,
Exactly.
helping to bring the body and mind back into balance.
Exactly. Now, are these herbs typically taken in supplement form, or are they used in other ways?
Yeah, that's a good question. How are they used?
Well, they can be taken in supplement form, but Ayurveda also uses herbs in many other ways, like teas, decoctions, oils, and even powders that can be mixed with warm milk or water.
Okay, so it's like a whole culinary adventure.
Yeah, it can be.
Okay, so we've covered diet, we've covered herbs. What about those body-based therapies that Ayurveda is known for?
Right, well beyond diet and herbs. Ayurveda offers a range of body-based therapies that can be very effective for addressing mental health concerns.
Okay, tell me more about these therapies.
So one of the most well-known Ayurvedic therapies is Panchakarma,
Panchakarma.
which is a series of 5 detoxification and rejuvenation treatments designed to cleanse the body of toxins and restore balance.
Okay, that sounds pretty intense.
It can be.
What exactly does it involve?
It can vary depending on the individual's needs,
Okay.
but it often includes things like massage, herbal steam baths, enemas, and even induced vomiting.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm ready for induced vomiting, but I'm intrigued by the other stuff.
Yeah, so the idea with Panchakarma is to purify the body at a deep level and eliminate anything that might be contributing to mental or physical imbalances.
So it's like hitting the reset button on the body and mind.
And while Panchakarma is a more intensive therapy, there are also simpler treatments that can be very beneficial for mental well-being, like massage with warm herbal oils.
Massage.
Exactly.
Now we're talking. Tell me more about Ayurvedic massage.
Ayurvedic massage, or Abhyanga, is a deeply relaxing and therapeutic experience.
Okay.
And it typically involves warm, medicated oils that are carefully chosen based on the individual's dosha.
Okay.
The massage strokes are gentle and rhythmic, and they're designed to stimulate circulation, calm the nervous system, and promote a sense of deep peace and well-being.
I can already feel myself relaxing just thinking about it.
Good.
What other body-based therapies are there?
Another one that's specifically helpful for mental health is Shiratara.
Kirdura.
And it involves gently pouring a continuous stream of warm oil onto the forehead,
Okay.
specifically the area between the eyebrows, which is known as the third eye
Right.
in Ayurvedic tradition.
I've seen pictures of Shirodara. It looks so serene and calming.
It is. And it's said to have this profoundly calming effect on the mind and nervous system. Okay.
It can be helpful for insomnia, anxiety, stress, and even headaches.
Wow, Ayurveda really does offer this whole toolbox of remedies for supporting mental well-being.
It does.
It's amazing how it combines diet herbs and body-based therapies to create this truly holistic approach.
It's the beauty of Ayurveda. It recognizes that we're not just a collection of symptoms. We're complex beings
Right.
with interconnected systems, and true healing involves addressing all aspects of our being.
This deep dive has been so informative and eye-opening. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the wisdom of Ayurveda.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, these are just a few examples of the many tools that Ayurveda offers for supporting mental health. If you're interested in exploring further, there are many resources available, from books and websites to qualified Ayurvedic practitioners who can provide personalized guidance.
Absolutely. And if there's one key takeaway from our deep dive, it's that Ayurveda reminds us that we have the power to heal ourselves.
To cultivate mental well-being and to live in greater harmony with ourselves and the world around us.
Beautifully said.
It encourages us to listen to our bodies, understand our minds, and connect with something greater than ourselves.
It's an invitation to embark on a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
And embrace the wisdom of this ancient system of healing.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of Ayurveda and mental health. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and inspiration along the way.